I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 196 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. Let yourself come up for air. So today, I want to speak to you directly if you feel like you are underwater, like you just have your head down and you're swimming hard and you're just trying to get through whatever it is that you're in. There are times for all of us when we find ourselves in that situation. I've been there. I'm sure even if you're not there right now, you can remember a time that you were there. We've all been there. And some times that I think of that can put us in this situation pretty predictably, there's 3 of them. So think about your life. Do any of these apply to you these days? The first would be crisis. Could be a personal crisis. It could be a work crisis. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and the business is really struggling. Maybe you work for an organization and their stock price is plummeting, or their market share is declining, or they have a new competitive threat. Crises, whether they are at work or personal, can be all-consuming, right? We can commit so fully to navigating that crisis that it's like we're underwater and the world around us sort of disappears. The second time that I think this can happen is when we're in a period of intense change. Something really big is changing for us. I think about things like preparing to get married or getting married, moving, packing up a house or buying a house or building a house. Anytime that there is an intense change, maybe a child is leaving for college, maybe you have a child getting ready to start school, maybe you have a newborn, and that's a period, that is one I definitely remember being a period of intense change where you sort of go under, and then you go out one day to Target and you think, this world still exists? Like, people are out here going to Target? What? Because the world has just disappeared when you're in that period of really intense change. And the third one I think about, and I am sure there are more, but the third one I think about are caregiving chapters. Newborn would apply here again. Maybe it's elder care for your parents or grandparents or an elder relative. Illness, a period of illness, especially serious illness for someone in your household, or injury. Where there's a hospitalization or a long recovery period and rehab involved. And those caregiving chapters are intense. They are times much like those periods of intense change or periods of crisis, or God forbid, all of them happening at once, right? Like a newborn in the NICU with a really serious illness. That would constitute all 3 at once. These are times when we feel like we're swimming underwater, right? Our lungs are straining and our muscles are aching. And it's like we just can't possibly take a break. But in those really dark or really difficult times, we need light more than ever. When we're really deep underwater and we are swimming so hard, we need to come up for air. We need to let ourselves come up for air, to find a little normalcy, to remember who we are, to just breathe. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is this notion of letting ourselves come up for air. And if this is you right now, I am speaking directly to your heart today. If this is something that someone who's in one of these chapters, you may want to forward them this episode. And otherwise, I want you to listen and bookmark this and come back at a time that you may really need to hear it in that moment. And I'm going to talk about a few different angles on this subject today. I want to talk about why we need to let ourselves come up for air, and also why we resist it. And then I want to talk really pragmatically about how to do it, right? And I'm going to get into each of those things in turn here. So first, why do we need it? And I hope this is obvious to you. I hope as you hear me set up those scenarios in which you might find yourself swimming underwater, it's clear why we would need to come up for air. But let's just review. First of all, we need recovery. Exertion recovery as a pattern really is how we're wired. It's who we are made to be. And so when we're in too long of a period of exertion without associated recovery, we get in trouble. We get tired and we can start to go under. And so we really have to be intentional about finding those periods of recovery. Second, the ability to, what I'm saying is come up for air can give us like the emotional reset button. In psychology, sometimes we call this pattern interruption. We're in a pattern, we're just breathing the same air, thinking the same thoughts, doing the same things over and over again. And that ability to change the scenery, to change the soundtrack, to change something about our circumstances really can allow us to press that emotional reset button and get a new perspective. Give our sympathetic nervous system, the one that activates fight or flight, give that a break and let our parasympathetic nervous system, which is that restful, the ability to access rest and breathing and calmness, can let that rise up. It's like resetting the hormones in our body, really. Those stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline need an opportunity to drop. We need to stop producing them by telling ourselves we're safe. And we need it. We need this opportunity to come up for air because we need to be where no one needs us for a while. We need to be in a space, even if it's momentary, where no one needs us, where we just are. It's just me, myself, and I. Or better yet, we need to be the one being taken care of, right? We need to flip the script upside down. And instead of us being the caregiver, the provider, the one solving all the problems, we need to allow ourselves to be taken care of for some period of time. And sometimes I think of it as we just need to let our souls catch up with us. They are trailing behind as we are swimming so hard. And sometimes we just need to pause and let our souls catch up with our bodies. So those reasons why we need it are hard to argue with, right? We are human. We are not robots. We're not some sort of artificially intelligence created creatures. Like, we are human beings who need these things. And yet we resist it. When we get into one of these chapters where we're really underwater, head down and swimming, we resist the very thing that we need. So why is that? And I was thinking about this as I was pulling together today's episode, and I came up with 5. You may have more than 5. I'd love to hear from you, right? If you have other ideas about this, I love it when I hear back from listeners. You can always comment on an episode. You can go to our Brilliant Balance Facebook group and drop a thread there about your response to this episode. But I think when I think about why we resist these breaks, the first words that come to my mind are the Atlas complex, right? You remember Atlas? Atlas kind of put the world on his shoulders and was responsible for carrying the world around. And I think of the Atlas complex as this belief that the world will literally fall apart without us holding it up. It can be sort of an addiction, that no one will do it like me. It has to be me. I am singularly responsible for holding the world up on my shoulders. And I think if we're honest, a lot of us have that pattern of behavior. A lot of us feel this sense of importance or necessity that we are using, right? And so that Atlas complex is the notion that if I don't do this, the whole world will literally fall down at my feet. That's not the prettiest thing to think about ourselves, right? I don't know that we love to think of ourselves that way. It has a bit of a savior complex undertone, but I think if we're honest, it's quite true. I know it has been for me, sort of the no one can do this like me. The second reason I think we resist coming up for air is guilt. We will let someone down. This is a selfish act to take a break? How could I possibly, give myself permission to come up for air? This sense of guilt that I would be doing it wrong, that I would be letting someone else down, that it isn't right, is the second reason. And this one is prevalent. I mean, we feel guilt about so many things. Why wouldn't this be one of them, right? It's just yet another manifestation of where guilt can get in our way. And the third may be a bit of a riff on the first. So I called it fear, right? Fear of what could happen. What if I take this break, what could happen? And this really can be compounded by trust issues. So it goes right back to that Atlas complex. Like, I can't trust anyone else to do it. It has to be me. What if something happens while I'm not there, while I'm not watching, while I'm not handling the situation? What if someone else gets the phone call? What if someone else has to manage through it? That fear of I am the only one who can handle it. The Atlas complex and fear are sort of intertwined a bit in our hangups about why we don't want to come up for air. The fourth one's a little different though. The fourth one is habit, right? We've forgotten how. Some of you have been in these chapters for so long. It's like Groundhog Day. You are now waking up. Today will be just like yesterday. This is all I can handle. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not exercising. I'm not showering, whatever it is. And this is just who I am now. And this is just Groundhog Day. I am in a new habit where crisis has become my normal. And that is a dangerous pattern to get into, right? That is a dangerous pattern to get into. So habit, this notion of Groundhog Day, is one that I want you to pay attention to if you're realizing, man, I haven't come up for air in a long time because I have forgotten how. Because that we're going to talk in a minute here about some ways to break that habit. And then the fifth one is more emotional territory. It's, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing anything that is joyful or relaxed. How could I possibly be relaxed or be joyful when this is going on, whatever this is, right? The crisis, the caregiving chapter, the period of intense change. How could I possibly be relaxed with this going on? But here's the thing. Mood follows action. So sometimes we're waiting to feel relaxed or feel like we want to do this thing before we do it. But often we have to flip that. We have to do something that actually seems antithetical to the situation. And that is what starts to shift our mood, to lift our spirits, to give us that next burst of energy that we need, right? So we have to figure out how to push past any resistance, whether the resistance is, the Atlas complex, whether it's guilt, fear, habit, or just, I just don't feel like it, right? It doesn't feel appropriate for the situation. We have to figure out how to push past that resistance and make this really practical and really accessible because we've already agreed that it's really important. Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. Okay, so I want to share some ideas whether you can find a moment, like just a moment, whether you can find like an hour or two, or whether you can find maybe a day or two to let yourself come up for air. And I want you to hear me. I know you will resist this. I know you will say that is fine for other people. Wonderful ideas here, just not for me. Thank you very much. I will continue to manage the situation as I have been. And I just want to assure you, I have been there. I have said that. I have thought that. I have felt that. I have done that. And that's why I'm doing this episode, because it is so imperative that we remember the refreshing, just gulps of oxygen that are available to us when we do come up for air. So here's how to do it. I want to talk first about what if you can just get a moment, because this is the easiest, right? A moment could be anywhere from a few seconds to 20 minutes, okay? Maybe you can just take a few deep belly breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You can do it right now, right? In through your nose, out through your mouth. 3, 5, 10 of those, amazing. It literally reminds you of coming up for air, right? Like as though you're swimming underwater so hard and your head gets above the surface and you take that big deep breath in. That you can do no matter what. Sitting bedside with someone, you can still take a few deep cleansing breaths. Another one that fits into a few moments or minutes is a song. Keep a playlist ready for you that you know shifts your mood. And you can play a song. You can play it in the background. You can play it in your car. You can play it while you are brushing your teeth. But that song is kind of a mini mental break. You can go outside and put your face up to the sun. I'm looking outside my window right now and the sun is shining really brightly. Summer as I'm recording this, and the notion of just walking outside and letting that sun hit your face and hit your body, even if it's the middle of winter, is a reminder that that sun comes up every morning. And you can take that moment to just drink that in. Drinking that in, speaking of that, a really cold glass of icy water. Like just fill it to the top with ice and water and hold it. And just sip and let that cold slide down your throat. Can be pattern interruption, right? It can change the way you feel. A warm beverage could do the same thing. A cup of tea, could be great. A great cup of coffee that's just for you, where you're holding that mug in your hands, right? And just doing nothing else, just drinking that beverage sip by sip. Maybe it's a poem. Keeping a book of poetry. A book may be completely overwhelming in a chapter like this. It might be incomprehensible that you could read a book. But if you keep a book of poetry or really short essays or stories, but poetry is moving, right? Just one poem that you read, one page of a devotional can be that moment. It could be a really short walk. I call these micro walks, right? A really short walk, even something like up and down your own driveway, just to go to the mailbox. Maybe it's just into your backyard and back into the house again. A really short walk, just to kind of feel your feet on the ground, pay attention to those steps, get your eyes focused on something other than the environment you've been in all day. Maybe it's a podcast. A 15 or a 20-minute podcast that just gives you something entirely different to think about. Could be entertaining, could be educational, could be inspirational. Keep a queue of them, right? That again, because it's audio, you can do it anywhere. Those are ideas if you just have a few moments. We haven't done anything longer, maybe with the exception of the podcast. We haven't done anything longer there than a couple of minutes, maybe even less than a minute. And you really want to tell yourself, I do have time for this. I can do this. And I can be fully present in each of those moments. And I will build stamina to do some things that maybe are an even bigger break. So when you do build that stamina, and let's say you're able to get an hour or maybe even several hours strung together to take a break from the crisis, from the caregiving situation, from this period of intense change that you're navigating, or whatever else it is that has you feeling like you're underwater. Here are some things that might fit into an hour or a couple of hours. A walk, like a real walk, not a micro walk this time, but something that's, you're really moving through different scenery. Getting to a beautiful place to do that would be amazing, but even doing it in your neighborhood, right out your front door, wherever you live, can be powerful. A yoga class or a yoga practice, a bike ride, that you just get a change of scenery, and you could be alone, you could be with other people for that hour or several hours. Different angle, you could go to a bookstore and lose yourself in just perusing those tables and shelves of books. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know that would be my happy place. So being able to just pick up different titles and look at all of those covers and open whatever you want. A library might fit the same, scratch the same itch. Maybe you do an art project. Maybe you love to paint or to draw, and you can keep things out on a desk that when you get an hour, you can walk straight over to that and pick up that project where you left off. You could go to a movie or watch a movie at home with an hour or several hours and completely lose yourself in a story other than your own. When I am really stressed about something in my life, one of the best gifts I can give myself is to get into someone else's story, right? It's great when you can do that through service or connection with a human in your life, but a movie or a book are great ways to get lost in another story. It's almost impossible to think about your own situation if you're really engrossed in that story. So it's a great immersive activity. A drive, just getting in the car and driving for an hour or several hours, playing music, maybe you stop at a Starbucks, whatever you like, but just being able to feel that you're in motion can be very powerful. With an hour or several hours, you could spend time in nature. You could go to the park, you could go into the woods, you could go to the beach if you live close to one or a lake, any place where you really feel immersed in nature and you feel that oneness with nature can be so powerful. Just going outside and lying down in the grass can be a powerful reset. So it's very grounding to spend time in nature, which can pull you out of that action of feeling like you're really just trying to survive. I hope there's ideas in there from moments to an hour or several hours that are accessible to you right now in whatever situation you're in. But I want to cast a vision for you of something even a little bit bigger. Let's say you're in one of these chapters for a while. It's been going on for a while. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's several months, maybe it's a year that you've really been in one of these heavy chapters. Finding a way to get a day or several days strung together to get away from it and get some help can be huge. This is where, you're taking time off from work for sure. We don't want to carry the work with us, especially if it's a work crisis. But even if it's a personal crisis you're navigating, we want to really get time away from work. Maybe get out of town, get a change of scenery. If you can't leave your town, how do you get a change of scenery within your town? Can you stay at a friend's house? Can you get to a hotel or, an Airbnb in town? Can you get to a cabin? Can you get to a spa? What starts to feel like you could really take a breather from the scene that you've been living over and over again? I think these are great opportunities to spend time with family or time with good friends who fill you up, especially if those are people who can take care of you. If you can let yourself fall into someone's arms who is willing to make you a meal or give you a place to stay or put a drink in your hand or pour you a cup of coffee or give you a hug, that is so restorative. And over again in my life and in so many of the women who I've had the opportunity to coach, that chance to lean into letting someone else take care of you can be incredibly restorative when you're in one of these chapters. So all of those practical ideas I'm just offering up as inspiration. Please make it your own. Please let something that I've said there spark for you. The key thing I want you to recognize is, when do you need this? What will a chapter look like when you need to be reminded to let yourself come up for air? And it's often when it feels the least plausible, when we resist it the most, because the caregiving that we're doing or the crisis we're managing or the change we're navigating feels so important and so all-consuming that we just keep telling everyone around us, no, I've got this. I've got it. I'm fine. I don't need any help. I've got it. But rarely is that true. Okay, so start with just a moment that you can get for yourself today. Build up to an hour or several hours or maybe a day or several days over time. But please honor your humanness. Honor that great power of letting yourself come up for air when you are in one of these chapters, and let yourself experience the immense benefits. You will go back to managing the situation around you with more grace, with more patience, with a lighter heart than you would otherwise. That is my message for you today, my friends. Please share this with someone in your life who needs to hear it right now. It means so much to me when you take these episodes and send them out into the world to people who need them. And if you are new to this community and someone shared this episode with you, come join us on Facebook in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. Just search groups for Brilliant Balance and come join us there. We would love to welcome you in and help take care of you through whatever it is that you are navigating. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.